Hi guys, I hope that you're all doing well. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how to build discipline. I think it's common knowledge these days that discipline and self-control are much more important than talent in order to succeed, in order to achieve our goals. But how is it that we can build discipline? How is it that we can work on this skill? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I have 5 actionable tips for you. But before we get to that, I really want to talk about why is discipline so important. I want all of us to be on the same page and all of us to understand how crucial this skill is so that we can promptly get into the 5 tips that I have for you guys. So first of all, why is discipline so important? So to answer this question, I looked through 3 different research papers. All of them will be linked down below so you can read them and look at them in your own time if you wish to do so. But the first one is called The Science and Practice of Self-Control. It was published in 2017 by Angela Duckworth and Martin Seligman. And what they found was that students with more self-control were able to achieve more academic success. That was the first thing they showed. The other thing was that they compared the groups of students that had a high level of self-control and discipline versus a group of students that had a higher IQ. So the higher IQ is supposed to mimic talent. These students are doing well academically because they're naturally gifted and they naturally understand academic things a lot easier, right? So that's the talent part of it. So they compared the talent versus the self-control. And what they found was that both of these groups were very similar in terms that they had fewer absences, they procrastinated less, they watched less TV, they could work more long hours. But then the thing that was quite interesting was that they showed that the group that had a higher level of self-control were able to actually gain some ranks in the order of the class. So basically they were, with their self-control, they were able to slowly but surely gain ranks and get closer to the first of the class, basically, the one that's the best in the class academically. But they weren't able to show that and prove that with IQ. So what that shows is that talent can only get you so far. At some point in time, with talent, you're capped. If you don't then have self-control and discipline, you can't continue to go up and reach higher levels of success. So that, I think, was the first thing that they showed with this research paper. The other research paper that I looked through was called A Gradient of Childhood Self-Control Predicts Health, Wealth, and Public Safety. That was published in 2011 by Mohit and a lot of other people. And what this research paper showed was that students that had higher levels of self-control, that was a very good predictor in what their adult life will look like. And what they found was that students that had higher levels of self-control were able in adult life to have a higher income, were able to have more financial security, were able to achieve occupational prestige, they had better saving behaviors, they were using less substances, so like less alcohol, less drugs, everything, and they were less likely to have criminal convictions. So all of these things shows that self-control can allow you to achieve all of these good, positive things in your adulthood. And the last thing was the famous marshmallow test pioneered by Walter Mischel. And this test took a lot of kids and told them, you can have 1 marshmallow now, or you can wait a given amount of time, and then I'll give you 2 marshmallows when I come back. And what they were testing was delayed gratifications. They were trying to see which kids would immediately just eat the marshmallow or immediately ring the bell and ask for the marshmallow to come back, and compared those kids with the kids that would just wait until the person would come back and give them 2 marshmallows. So it's basically going through a period of uncomfort to then get a higher reward. And what they found with this research, because they actually followed up a lot of these kids for a few decades, and they saw that those children that as kids were able to wait to get 2 marshmallows and showed a positive delayed gratification, they actually were able in life and adulthood to better manage their stress, better handle their frustration. They were often more intelligent, more attentive, they were more competent, they planned better, and they had better self-control. So all of this part of me talking through this research is basically to show you how crucial and important discipline is. Discipline is one of those skills that you want to have. It's one of those skills that you want to invest in as early as possible and really become good at it, because the return on your investment for discipline is massive. So I hope now that we're all on the same page as to how important discipline is. I feel like I'm saying discipline so many times and it's not making sense anymore, but I hope you're still with me. So now let's talk about 5 actionable steps that you can take to start building your own discipline, okay? The first thing that I'm going to be talking about is that you have to understand that discipline is like a muscle. So it means that you can build it, but you can also lose it. But we're going to focus on how you can build it. The more you do it, the more you train it, the more you're going to get better at it. It's one of those things that you just have to do and do and do and do and do, and at one point it's just going to become natural. And some people, as they proved on the research, are naturally more inclined to be able to have good self-control and to wait for the 2 marshmallows, and others are not as much. But it's something that you can train. So it's one of those first points that I want to show you, that if you're somebody that's not very disciplined at the moment, you're not broken. You can still work on it. You can train that muscle the same way that you can go to the gym. The other thing that with that is that the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And the more you do small actionable steps and you prove to yourself that you can be disciplined with smaller things, the more confidence you get that, oh, I can be a disciplined person, you know what I mean? It's not gonna go from one day being like, oh, I'm not disciplined at all, and then the next day, tomorrow, you're like, oh, I'm a disciplined person. You're gonna feel like you can have discipline and self-control once you have enough evidence behind you that you've been able to showcase and train that behavior. It's kind of this analogy that I heard recently, that you need to put enough strokes of paint over and over and over and over on top of each other to start seeing a mountain. You know, and that's one of those things that you have to commit to showing up for yourself and being disciplined in everything that you do to build that mountain where you're like, oh, actually, I am disciplined. Look at that. Look, I built this mountain brushstroke by brushstroke. So discipline is a muscle. It can be built. The second thing that I want to tell you is that, especially if you're somebody that is struggling a lot with discipline and self-control, and you have no evidence whatsoever that you ever really were able to stick to something and show discipline and self-control day in, day out, I would really recommend to start with something that you want to do. Start with one habit that you want to build. Any habit anyways will require discipline to be built. You know, even if it's something that you actually want to do, there's going to be days where you don't want to show up. There's going to be days that you don't want to do it, and that's when discipline kicks in. But do yourself a favor and find a goal that is challenging yet achievable and that you can actually stick to. And that is something that ignites some sort of fire. You're excited about it. If you're somebody that's like, I don't want to go to the gym. I know I should, but I don't want to go. Don't make that the first habit you build, because that's just going to be a lot harder. There's going to be a lot more resistance, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to prove to yourself and gain that sort of confidence and proof. You know, all the strokes, it's going to be quite a lot harder to like put stroke after stroke after stroke if it's something that has consistent resistance. Whereas if it's something that actually excites you anyways, you're like, oh, like I've always wanted to eat a bit healthier, and that feels like something exciting to me, then go with the thing that feels exciting first and focus on that one. And then once that habit is built, then maybe you can try to build habits that are a bit more challenging and have a lot more resistance to it. But when you're first starting out, you want to get more evidence behind you that you can do hard things, but there's no point in putting yourself completely in the deep end initially. My third and my fourth point are actually kind of linked. The third one is you should spend more time planning, and my fourth one is that you should know your weaknesses. So spending more time planning basically means that it's important to have forethought when you're trying to build new habits. It's important to have forethought when you're building discipline, because everybody's going to get distracted. Everybody's going to have things that they'd rather be doing. But if you've planned your day correctly and adequately, these distractions can be minimized. So let's say you're a student and you're like, you know what, I want to really get a good grade. I don't want to be procrastinating anymore. Instead of being like, you know what, I'm just going to wake up and work. That could mean anything, because that might mean that you're waking up at 11, then you have lunch, and then oh my god, before you know it, it's 1, and then you're like, oh, you have to work, but it's sunny outside, might as well go for a walk, la 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 la, and then things lead to one another, la la la, and then it's 11 p.m. and you've done nothing. If you planned your day and the day before, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna wake up at 8:30, then I'm gonna have this breakfast, then I'm going to leave the house by 10, go to the library. All of these things are stuff that you've thought about before, and so you've planned ahead, and that's gonna help you a little bit more with sticking to what you've told yourself if you've planned it and you know exactly where it is that you're going. If you have already set direction of where you want to go, it's a lot easier to follow that. Whereas if you're just creating the path as you go, you can kind of end up anywhere. You'd rather know the destination, have organized that before so you know exactly which path to take. It's the quickest route to your destination. And then this fourth point, which is know your weaknesses, is that you need to know at which points of the journey and what are the different things and triggers that are going to make you not be as disciplined and not follow what you've said and not have as much self-control. And that's kind of links to this psychology, the operant conditioning theory, which is basically saying that a stimulus leads to a behavior, which then leads to a consequence. And so that means anything. So that could be somebody that wants to eat healthy, but every single time they go back from work, they're hungry, so that's the stimulus, I'm hungry. Then they're like, well, there's a McDonald's on my way home, so they go to the McDonald's, that's the behavior, they buy the food, that's still the behavior, and then the consequence is, oh, I've eaten McDonald's, but I said to myself that I wanted to eat healthy. And so now you haven't honored the promise that you made to yourself, hey, I'm gonna work on myself and eat a lot healthier. And so what you want to do is that use the operant conditioning theory to your advantage. Instead of, getting hungry and being like, oh, what am I going to do? So having that stimulus, I'm hungry, and then being like, well, I'm just going to go to McDonald's. Again, you've planned in advance, right? So you've planned in advance, you knew that this was going to be a weakness, that you're going to get hungry by the end of work. So you've thought in advance, I have dinner ready at home, it's ready. I get home, I just have to put it in the microwave, it's ready, and it's good food. Or I've brought food with me, I've brought a healthy snack which is going to allow me to soothe that hunger before I get home and cook. It's the same thing if you want to play an instrument and practice it more. Rather than having the instrument hidden away in a drawer or whatever, make sure that it's out. It's somewhere really easy to grab. So you're like, oh, the flute's here, might as well play the flute. And so it's one of those things that you need to plan in advance and know your weaknesses at the same time, so you can kind of hijack and bypass the whole system and kind of have always a few steps ahead of what your brain is going to do when it's actually happening, if that makes sense. And then the last thing, which I think is kind of a good positive thing to end up on, is that we're all human and we're all going to make mistakes. This is not a very linear path of this is going to be great, I'm just going to be super disciplined all the time. No, we're going to have moments where we're not going to do what we said to do. We're going to have moments that even though we knew our weaknesses, even though we've planned in advance, we're still going to end up in McDonald's. We're still going to have not done anything until 11 p.m. because we're human. Life is like that. It's unpredictable, and even if we try our best to bypass the system, hijack the whole thing, it's not always going to work. But you should set the rule for yourself that, hey, I know I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm only allowing myself to trip up once at a time. Meaning, for example, let's say you're like, you know what, I want to practice the piano 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And on Saturday, you've missed it, you haven't practiced. Well, fine, you take the L, but Monday you have to practice and you have to show up a lot better for yourself. You can't miss 2 days in a row, that's what I mean. The first day is a mistake if you miss it, the second day is you not honoring your promise, and that's how I view it. For example, I want to post videos every single Sunday, that's my goal. But there's some times where it's not possible. The computer doesn't work, I haven't organized my time adequately, and the video's not posted. But my new rule this year is I'm only allowing myself to not post 1 video every time. So at a minimum, I'll have 2 videos posted every month. So if I miss this week, I'm not missing next week, whatever happens. If I'm staying awake the whole night and editing, I don't care. I'm missing 1 week, but not 2 in a row. So yeah, that's the video. I hope it helped you. I hope it gave you some sort of actionable steps about how to build discipline, because I feel like it's one of those difficult things to work on and to get better. And a lot of the times the advice that you have is very general. I hope that the advice I gave was helpful. If you have any other questions, anything that you haven't understood, if you want a part 2 or anything, please leave a comment down below. Please let me know. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share this video with other people that could benefit from it as well. And yeah, without further ado, I think I'm gonna go, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye guys.